Good evening. Just a quick one from Rise Up Australia, Brisbane 2025. Remember the blog, The Truth, the Truth blog, prophetic and political. You know, this whole thing about Pauline Hanson now, this idiot that we've got as a Prime Minister, which I'm reluctant to admit that. Albanese says, now it's a matter for the police. Nothing's a matter for the police. It goes through a legal process to get to any conclusion. The police are just called in as instruments of the legal system. Basically, at the end of the day, it's not up to the police to prosecute politicians. But the whole matter is, this is in defence of Pauline Hanson. She never said anything that was wrong. She's quite entitled to her opinion, and she could have framed it a little bit better, admittedly. We are talking about basically Islam. That's what we're talking about. And what's written in the book that these Muslims follow, which is 150 verses of jihad, including death to infidels, Jews, Christians, and everyone else that isn't in the death cult. So that's the problem. And are there moderate Muslims? Are there good Muslims? Are there bad Muslims? I'm sure there's good and bad in everything. But we're talking about the ideology. That's what we're talking about. And when you look at the world, worldwide, there is no question that the number one ideology that's killing people around the world is Islam. That's for certain, including Sydney, including the terrorism continually on Israel. So, that's the facts at the end of the day. Now, all this BS that's going on and, through the Albanese government and all the lefties about what Pauline Hanson said. Well, what did Pauline Hanson say? Are there any good Muslims? That's what she said. There's nothing offensive in that. That's a question asked. It should have perhaps been reframed into the area. And of course, it was taken out of context. It reframed in the area, is Islam any good for Australia? Now, when you examine that, as Dr. Stephen Shavira, who is on my blog, I've featured him regularly, as he said, there should be a royal commission into Islam. Forget the royal commission into anti-Semitism. Forget the laws about making statements and this and that and everything else, although they have a benefit. But at the end of the day, the royal commission, we should have a royal commission into Islam, the root cause of terrorism worldwide and including Australia. Even though those terrorists of Bondi, they were homegrown in the mosque in Lakemba there, with that hate preacher that is featured quite regularly on Channel 7 or Sky News for certain. Where is he? Has he been arrested yet? Has he been arrested for yelling out, they're celebrating that they slaughtered 1,200 Jews in the front of the Sydney Opera House? Has he been charged? Has he been arrested? Has he been arrested to fly the flags of the Hezbollah and all the Hamas and all that? Has anyone been arrested in all those marches across Sydney Harbour Bridge and even across Brisbane here, and which we tried to stop? We did a pretty good job at it, actually, but in Melbourne and all that, claiming global infodata, gas the Jews, death, the IDF from the river to the sea. That's all incitement, which is illegal in this country, for mass murder. Who was arrested out of that? Now, this issue is a really hot button, and of course, the Albanese government are terrorist appeasers. Have a look at my article on the Truth blog regarding how the Labor government in the UK tried to appease Hitler until Winston Churchill come along. So, just in summary, this is where it's at. Pauline Hanson said nothing illegal actually at all. Nothing. Zero. Just in that general conversation. She should have said, I would have said, can you trust Islam and those people associated with Islam? Because the actual book they read is full of violence, basically. Violence to anyone else is not in the death cult. And that happens all over the world. Nigeria, Well, look at Iran at the moment. 36,000 young people shot, killed, hanged by Islamic fanatics, the Ayatollahs, a picture of whom, by the way, was carried across the Sydney Harbour Bridge by the Free Palestine mob. And then Chris Kenny came out tonight on Sky News and exposed what was going on in the, the Queers for Gaza. Can you believe it? Queers for Gaza, and they were chanting, global infidata, queers for Gaza. These are so-called university students, which must have attended the Sydney University to get a complete lobotomy, because that's just absolutely insane. Not only is it insane from any intellectual point of view, but it's insane that the fact Queers for Gaza, put them over there and see what happens. See what Hamas does to you, dear queers from Gaza, or queers to Gaza, or queers wherever you are. They will instantly, you know what they'll do? You'll be off the top of a building, you'll have your throat slit immediately. In Islam, no trans, homosexual, anything is allowed in Islam. They will kill you. Along with the Jews, along with the Christians, and anyone else is not in the death cult. And that happens right across the world, there's no question about that. So the other thing is, you've got that absolute moron down in Canberra called Lydia Thorpe, who threatened to burn down Canberra, burn down the Parliament building, set it on fire. Has she been arrested yet? Has she been arrested for incitement? Then you've got the completely brainless, attractive young girl that, what's her name, Grace Thame. Global infidata, she's screaming from the balcony. In other words, mass murder the Jews. Has she been arrested yet? Has she been charged? Has Albanese put the police onto her? This is all double standards by a pathetically weak and terrorist-appeasing government, who really are the ones who have facilitated the passports and secretly tried to bring back the ISIS brides who were involved in mass murder. It's simple as that. So something's got to be done, and something's got to be done soon. That we cannot put up with another 2 years of having these basically anti-Israel, pro-Hamas leadership in this country. It's not leadership. They're absolutely destroying the moral fabric of Australia. Now, as far as multiculturalism is concerned, of course, Australia's being built on multi-ethnic races in this country, but they all must fall under one flag, one constitution, and the rule of law. It just simply has to be enforced. We just got a bunch of gutless fools that are in the government at the moment, and the reason we've got these gutless fools headed by Albanese in the government is simply that we never had an opposition. The opposition were as gutless as well as guilty as Labor, basically. So the opposition's picking up a little bit of momentum, but I think that Pauline Hanson's certainly gaining a lot of momentum because she's been willing to just stand up for the average Aussie and say and speak what the majority of Australia's thinking. And she's always done that, and 10 out of 10 there, Pauline. I mean, I have my differences with different political parties. I've been the former Senate candidate for Rise Up Australia. We were pushing this agenda about watch out what Islam will do back in our election run in 2019. My preferences got in Gerard Rennick's, but now this has become the number one hot button issue. Islam in Australia after Bondi, and of course the 23rd of October 2023 with the mass murdering of the Jews and what have you. So it's an issue. It's got to be addressed, and it's got to be addressed very hard line. And anyone that comes out with this global infidata statement, they should be charged immediately with incitement to commit murder, incitement for violence. And when you have a look at the legal situation on the Attorney General's website, it clearly states Yes, you can protest peacefully, but the caveat is no incitement for violence. So far, all I've seen with, with the exception of the protests, like, the Australia Day marches and all this, there's no violence in that. The Iranian marches and protests, no violence in that. But the Free Palestine, plenty of violence in that one, plenty of violent statements. The things at this Sydney University, all violent statements. Global infidades means mass murder. Mass murdering of Jews, that's what that means. Rise up, terrorists, and kill every bugger. Unreal. This is just not acceptable, and it must be clamped down extremely hard, legally, and even in bringing the army in to do it. And then we must round up all the connections with terrorism, all the roots of that tree. We've got to pull it out and put it all over at Christmas Island and process them over there. To do that, we've got to have a really strong government in charge. I'm seeing a double dissolution referendum on free speech. I think this year it's just not going to, Albanese is not going to last another 2 years in this country. The country will be wrecked by then. We can't possibly have Albanese in for another 2 years. And the double dissolution, I think, is the way to go, and it will precipitate very rapidly. Watch what happens. I'll leave it on this. Watch what happens in Iran. Watch what happens there. The war in Iran will be a global reset change. That's going to happen very, very shortly. Trump's lining up all the chess pieces, and when he moves, he's going to move rapidly, and he's going to move with great force, and he's going to take out all that military infrastructure. And at the end of the day, my feeling is that war will go on for about 3 months, and the Ayatollahs will call all their terror cells to just wreak havoc in Western nations. That's what will happen. Australia's got plenty of them. Unfortunately, I don't see the end of terrorism attack in Australia until we bring a government in that flushes them out completely and detains them over on Christmas Island, processes them there and sends them back to the Middle East. And they can kill each other over in the Middle East, but not Australian citizens. Graham Healy over and out. Remember, Jesus is Lord. And just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you're weak as water or anything like that. What it means that you must adhere to justice, and the police and army in a Christian nation are called to bear arms against those people who break the law. All right? Graham Healy over and out. Have a great night. It's all happening.